All right, so we stop at the DOM. Last time we talked about the objects, talked about array. What's wrong with this? Let me reload the page. Talked about objects, we talked about array, and we started with our DOM, which is the document object model, which I explained that this is what communicates between or this is the communication between the content you have on the page and your JavaScript there, like that. So the document is an object which the browser is giving to us through JavaScript so that we can manipulate the content that we have on the page. So everything you are seeing on this white screen, they are part of the document. So the document is the one that is holding everything. So any information that you want on this page through JavaScript, you are going to get it through this document. So it's the one that owns everything on the page. And when you want to manipulate the content of the page, we have some stuff that you need to know about first, which is like you getting the elements that you have on the page. Again, you're replacing the element content. So this is what we have from the HTML, but we should be able to change what is going to be like the content that is there. We change it to another content like that. Which extension is doing this nonsense? So there like that. So what can we do? So we started with us getting the element from the page. We are able to replace the content, but the video was not the audio at that point was cut off. So I'm going to go over the stuff again because this is what we talked about before. But at some point the audio was cut off. So we've already laid down all this content that we have here, which means you can get your element by ID like that. And in order for you to get element by ID, what you just need to do is to call document, because it's the object that owns everything on the page. And on it we have a method which is this get element by ID, and what you just need to supply it into it is just the ID of the element that you want to locate on the page. For example, this is our HTML. Now as you can see, some of the element here we have ID on them. So let me scroll up like that. As you can see, the heading we have this ID, or the H1 we have the ID heading, and for this P we have the ID para. So if you now want to get any of these elements based on that ID, then you can use get element by ID. So you just need to supply the ID of the element you are looking for, and it's going to give it to you. But you know that we're going to be using these elements a lot in different places. So instead of you doing the same thing again and again, we're now saving it in a variable so that anytime we need this element, we don't need to start going to the page to go and locate it again. We already save it inside this variable and we can call it, for example, on this line now. So assuming you want to console log it out or you want to do anything apart from this line, you have to call this thing again, the document get element by ID, supplying the header. But instead of us doing that, we are saving in the variable because we know about variable, like it can help us to hold value. And whatever value you put inside it, you'll be able to access it later on anywhere you call the variable. And you can even replace it if you want. But because we've already declare this one as a const, it means the actual value we put inside it, we cannot change it to another value. But if you know that you want to change the value, then you just use the let keyword. So this one, it will still be holding the value, but later on after this line I can change the value. But since I know the element that this thing is related to will not be changing at all, so this variable I created it for that specific element. So since it's not going to change, then there's no need for me using let. I can just use const, which is just giving hints that this I will not be changing it later on. But at some time you are going to create a variable that can actually point to different element, and those used to cause problem when you create that kind of a variable, because when you're using it in your program, you might not really know which element is there at that particular time because it's something that you can change. So that's why you always see me that when I'm creating or when I'm linking to element on the page, is always one-to-one. So that means each element are going to have their own variable, so that when I call any variable, I know what is like. I'm only sure that this is what is there. or nothing is there if that thing is not on the page. So not like it's referring to this element and at the same time it's not referring to another element later. It's possible, but it will really be hard for you to work with a large program later on, because you are going to have a lot of elements. How do you know which one is which at a particular point? So that's why you don't use one variable. You create a separate variable for them. And once we console log out this item here, and as you can see, we have that element coming on. And I told you everything on the page is just objects which have properties and methods that you can use to operate on them like that. So this H1 now, it have a lot of properties, and some of the properties that I said we're going to be working with is inner HTML, because that's the one that gives you the content that is inside that element along with the HTML code. Like whatever you type in your code, it's going to bring it out for you there like that if it have HTML code inside it. But right now, as you can see, nothing like HTML code there. It's just a normal text that we have there. But now if I go back to that page, so instead of us just having this welcome, so this JavaScript, now what I want to do is just to use the I tag so that it's going to be in italics like that. So JavaScript, so save. And once we go back to the page, you see that this one is in italic. So the way you type it from your code, that's the same way the inner HTML is going to give you back there. As you can see now, the way it was typed, that's the same thing we have it. But there's another one which is inner text. That one, I mentioned it doesn't return any HTML code. It will just join all the text together. It will remove, the job of that one is just remove all the HTML code, remove all the unnecessary spacing, then join all the text together. But with inner HTML, it will remove unnecessary spacing, and again, anywhere you need new line, you see that it's going to use backslash n like that. But for now, we don't have much content inside it, so it's just coming out. There's still another one to text content, but majorly what you always use is that inner HTML, because that one is flexible. You can use it to change HTML code, and at the same time, you can just use it to change normal text that you have inside the content. And as you can see, there's a lot of other things on it like that, which is it have something like a parent node, parent element, which is something I said we're going to be dealing with when we're dealing with transversing the DOM, which means from one element you can get to another element. So like this element now, we can know which element that follows it, or which element that comes before it, or where is it located, what's the parent. So that's what all this one will come to later on. By this, as you can see, parent element is telling us that it's inside body like that. So based on that, you know where the element is coming from. So this one is going to give you the parent element, which means once you have access to this, you don't need to start selecting the parent again. From this one, you can get to the parent. And again, too, if you want to get to any element that is inside it too, there's a property for that, which is children. As you can see, we only have one, which is the I tag. Again, it's not the text, so it's only focusing on HTML code, that is HTML tag that you have inside it. And since there's only one tag we have there, which is I, that's why you see that we only have one I. But if you need the text too and all the spacing, that's where the child node comes in. But most of the time, you don't need the text, or you don't need all the terrain beside it. What you need is the element. So children is holding all the element. What I invite to element is the tag. So when I'm talking about non-element, that means it's just normal text that you type there. So children doesn't hold anything like text you type. It's only the HTML code that is inside that place. That's what is focused on. The same thing too, we have the first child, as you can see, is showing text. Can you see that when you don't have element there, it doesn't focus on the element, because you don't make them this child, even if it is space that is there, it will pick it as the content. But first element, that one is always focusing on HTML tag you have there. And the first one is what this one is going to give you. We have another one, which is the last, as you can see, is the first one there, and at the same time, it's still the last one. But like this airline now, or these two airlines, there's no way this one will be the first and it will be last. So this one will be first and this one will be last. And if you need anyone in between them, that's the reason why we have children. Then you can now use the index to pick the one you want. No, this one is still the same thing as index 0, and this is the same thing as index 1. But it makes it possible for to select the first one and the last one easily by using first element or the last element. Again, too, it has siblings. So which one is talking about what follows or what comes before that element? So we're going to be using all of them, but all your elements, they always come with their properties and the method that you can use to modify them. And how do you get to the elements that you have on the page? So we have these different methods that you can use. You can use this get element by ID, but I told you I will not be using this method. Why? Because I don't want to be giving all my element ID every time, because I want to select them. Another one that is here is get element by class name. So this one allows you to select your element based on the class you supply on them. But I told you this one is not returning one element, it's returning array like of element that it can find on the page. And that's why you see that this one is having S. But if you look at the get, you can see that one did not have S. All those ones that have S, it means it's returning multiple. The one that did not have S, then it's just single element. Even if it is multiple, the first one it can find, that's what is going to return there like that. And this one too now, let me just console log it out. And as you can see, this thing is telling us that on the page, we have 3 elements that have this particular class there. And I told you too, I will not be using this method because this one too, it means you have to put class on all your elements. But with these two other methods that I said I'm going to be using there like that, we have this query selector and at the same thing query selector all, because this one they kind of allows you to select element as if you are doing your CSS selector like that. So and it kind of make it easier to do or to locate element repair without you giving class or you giving ID, because you can target based on different selectors, even though it's not that powerful like the CSS one, but it still comes with the goodies that you can use to get the content on the page. For example, like this one now, we want to select all the li that are inside UL. And if you want to do this with class, you have to go to the page, then start giving all those li that is inside UL class that you want like that. And or you can use their tag name, but again too, tag name, the li is still going to work inside ol, which means it to select everything. But with query selector, it make it easier for us to just do this simple stuff without going to the HTML to start giving classes, because we want to do this thing. And again, yeah, don't forget we have two. There's one with all and there's one with selector only. So when you say all, it's going to return all of them that it can find. And as you can see on the page, we have 3 LIs that are inside UL. And if it is one that is inside OL that I want, I just need to update my selector and it's going to return the one we have inside OL. And as you can see on the page, we have 37. With JavaScript, you quickly know the number of LI that is inside OL instead of you going through them one by one and counting. With JavaScript, you can quickly get the number of element that is on the page like that. But don't forget, once again, if this all is not there, it's just going to return the first one it can find, like the first one there. So every other one to just ignore. Once it hit the first one, it stops, it doesn't search again. But if it is all, even if you can find one, it will keep checking until it gets to the end of your document like that. So as from this moment on, I will always use this query selector or query selector, or depending on what I'm trying to select like that. If I want to select multiple elements, I will use query selector all like that. Or if I want to select one element, then I will just use this single query selector, because this one will only load the first one it can find on the page like that. So this is how it works. But we talked about we modifying the content, not just about locating the element, because the first step is you locate the element, then what do you now want to do with that element? Because it's not just, oh, I've located the element. What do you want to do? And the simplest stuff you want to do on that element is changing the content that you have inside it like that. And how do you do that? We talked about the inner HTML once again, which allows you to manipulate the content that you have there. So if I want to change any of the stuff that is inside it, I just need to mention my heading, because that's the variable that is holding that element there. Then on it, we have the inner HTML. we've talked about this. This is object notation here. So which means this is object, and inside it we have a property, and you are changing it to whatever value. And I told you too, there's another method. Instead of you doing it like this, you can put it in a quote like this. It will still work. But anytime you have simple text that is valid variable naming like that, you don't need to be doing it like this, because this is just waste of typing. You can do it like this, but this is just waste of typing. So what you always do most of the time is to use dots. But if you have most of the elements you are going to be working on a page, the way those properties are created, they are created in a way that you can use the dots with them like that, if you know the name of the stuff. But when you are creating your own object later on, or when you want to access something on the page, but you don't know which property they are looking for there, but you know the list of it, you still need to use square bracket to pass. When that one is coming from variable, you have to pass. But most of the time when you're dealing with the page, you are the one in charge, not what the user want to do, because you know that, since they want to change content, you already know the property that is going to do that, no other property, or there's no way you will now be doing it in different way. What you always do is to look for the simplest way of doing that stuff there like that, not that you be doing it in different way, and which can cause problems. And here now what we just want to do is from Java scripts like that. So we have from JavaScript like this, or let's just say change like that. So once this thing is saved and once JavaScript load that like that, it's going to update the content, whatever you want. And again too, you can put any HTML code. So like this change now, if I want, I can just put the I tag like that. So change like this, then whatever you type here is going to translate it to HTML code on the page. Once this thing is saved, and as you can see, that one now is now having the stuff. So let me move this thing to this side. Yes.
So the heading is after the dot and HTML. Usually equal to.
Yes.
To understand there's this equal to, then once you add this greater than sign there.
That means you are mixing them together, and you need to check that video again. So I told you, we have different operators. I told you we have arithmetic operator, which is the simplest one, where you have all these plus, minus, asterisk, this one and this one like that. Apart from that, we have relational operator, which is where you are relating things together, and that's why you have greater than, less than, you have equal to, which is this three, and you have not equals to like that. That's where you have all this one. But again too, we now have assignment, which is the one that help you to put value inside variable. So, and that's what I'm using here. So assignment operator is just this single stuff here. The single is equal in math, but here we don't call it, it's known as assignment operator. So its job is to pick whatever you have on the right, then assign it to what you have on the left. And that's what we are doing here. So under this heading, which is the HTML on the page, there is a property there known as inner HTML. And the job of this thing is to hold the content that you have inside that element, including the HTML code that you have inside it. So here now when I say, whatever that this thing you like used to hold before, whatever this thing is holding from the HTML code that have been generated from the HTML file, we don't want that content again. We are now changing, because whatever you have on the left or whatever you have on the right, it will put it on the right and on the left, and that's what it's doing. It's taking from JavaScript whatever stuff that we put on this right side, then it takes everything and it put it inside the inner HTML. So it will replace whatever that is there before. If this line is not there, by default, inner HTML will pick whatever you type from the HTML code. So which means whatever you type from here, that's what is going to be the inner HTML. But now we don't want it to be that. We are not changing it to something else. But not that you'll be changing things like this. No, it's going to be based on interaction or whatever the user is doing on a page or whatever you want to do. So when the user scroll past this also stuff, we want the text to be this. And when they scroll to that place, we want it to be something else. You want to change the color and so forth. This is just like a brief of what you are going to be doing like that. So we're just explaining the basic things that you are going to be doing on the page. And right now, the one we're talking about is replacing the element content, which is what we just did right now. Because the content that was there before, this is the content that is well, that's not the content. So what we have there before is welcome to JavaScript. But now we are replacing it with this one here. So without this line, it's going to show the HTML code that we type. But after this or getting to this line, then it will replace it with the new content that we put there like that. So the other one we have there is creating element from JavaScript, because it's not every time that the elements you want to use on the page are always there. Some of them you have to create it on the fly. Just like what I mentioned last time, you have inputs where the user can type their to do. You know, at that when you are creating the program, you don't know the to do that the user wants to display on the screen. So that at that point, there's no way you are going to have it in your HTML code. Is when they type in the box and they submit, that's when it will now appear where you want it to. So which means that thing needs to happen on the fly. But the code have to be there. So what do? You know what they want to do. But at that point, you don't really have the data. So what you can do is that, once they type, you get the data. You are going to see how to do that later on when we are talking about events, because you can check based on what the user carry out, then you do a specific or carry out a specific task. Like maybe they do something on the page like submitting form. So based on that event that occur, you will now run your code. That's the time that the thing is going to run. Not that it's just going to, because as you can see right now, it's just running in our code. But that's not what we want. It will run the code when user submits the form. So how do we know when the user submit the form? That's when we'll be talking about events, because everything you're doing on the page, it fires event. If you click on something, there's an event that just fired right now, that which inform you that someone had just clicked on something. What did they click on? If you want to listen on it on this element, you can listen for it on this element. Or if you want to listen for it on every element, then you just do it on the document. Anytime you click on something on the page, it will notify you that so person, or something has been clicked, it will give you the information of what was clicked, the location that you click. Like, this is where I am right now. It will tell you the distance from year to year, from year to year, and from year to year, and from year to year that you click. Then based on that, you can do whatever you want to do. And that's why if you go to some site, when you click on some place, you see that there's a ripple that will just show at that place. Why? Because they are listening for that event. Then based on the event that occur, they locate the location, because the thing will tell you the location that you actually click. Then based on that, you can put something at that place. But how do you put something at that place? That thing is not there before. You are creating it on the fly. And that's the reason why we need to know how to create elements from JavaScript, because some of the elements you're not going to have them in the HTML. You have to do it from here, because you don't really know the actual, you know the structure, but you don't know the data. Because that's the problem. You don't know the data, but you know the structure that the stuff is going to be. For example, we know that we want to add the paragraph here, but the only time we're going to add the paragraph is when the user click on this href. So because we don't want it to show. Sometimes too, if the content is not dynamic and you already know it, you can actually put it in the HTML directly. You just hide it. Then when the user click, you show it. But sometimes you don't even know the data, because the data will be coming from the user. And since the data will be coming from the user and the user has not already used your application, so you have to wait for them to supply the data. Then once you get the data, then you now generate the element that you want to use to display the data. And that's the reason why we need or we need to know how to create element from JavaScript. So create uh, elements from JS like that. And how do you create element? Is just simple. For example, here we can just assign it to a variable that you want, like that. For example, here let's just create a paragraph, which I'm going to call para here, or you can call it p, or you can call it anything you want, like that. You are the one creating the variable. Then here the same thing is still the document, because it's the one that is giving us everything. So on the document we have create elements. You can see most of all these things, they follows the naming that they use follows what they are trying to do. Some of them don't follow, but 90% of the time, whatever method or property you be using, they are kind of closely related to what they are doing. and like that, because you don't just want just can see the way they name things. They not call it X, Y, Z, A, B, C, because when you are doing that stuff at that moment, it's easier for you to remember. But when you come back to it later on, you start looking at what is X, what is Y, and that's why you always use correct name to
Names.
describe
What
what
involved.
that thing is all about. So through that name, even you don't need to see the entire code, you already know what is going on there. And what do we do with this one? What you just need to do is to pass in the name of the element you want to create. In HTML, when you want to generate p tag, what you just do, in VS Code, it's kind of easier. Just type the name of the element and you press enter. It will generate it for you. So if you want to do something that we just did right now, just to generate this paragraph, so to do it from JavaScript, what you have to do here is just to pass the name of the element. And as you can see, it has the suggestion for all the elements. So what this thing will do is that this line, what it's going to do is it's going to generate the p paragraph like this without nothing inside it, empty.
Okay.
So that's just what it's doing. This line, this create element, whatever element name you pass here or the tag name you pass here, is just going to create it like this. But when you create the stuff, that's the end of it. But you want to have reference to that element that was created, because if you do it again, that's another element they are creating, not the previous one. And that's the reason why we are putting it in this variable. So that when we want to work with the element that was created, we just call this variable and we'll do whatever we need to do on it. But anytime you create element, as you can see, nothing is happening on the page because it's not putting the element on the page at all. Enter a create element. This is what just is doing. So is that left for you to talk to JavaScript that this element you want to put something inside it, and again this element you want to put it somewhere on the page. The job of this one is just to create the element for you. It doesn't put it on the page at all. So the first step, you create the element. The second step, you put the content. Then the third step, you put it on the page. So that's the process you always follow anytime you are creating the element from JavaScript there. But if it's something that is already on the page, your own is just to get it, then manipulate the stuff. But when the element is not on the page, you have to create it. Then after creating it, you manipulate whatever you want to manipulate on it. Then when you are done, then you put it on the screen. So you can interchange that second step and the third step. Well, so
Together.
you can put it on the screen first, then you now change the content like that, because the first thing is just to add the element. Then when you have the element, you can now put it on the screen, or you can manipulate it and maybe put it on the screen later on. Or you put it on the screen instantly, then after that line, you now manipulate or you do something else later. But most of the time, it's always you creating it, you put it whatever stuff you want to put inside it, and manipulate, change whatever you want to change on it, then you put it on the screen there like that. And we've already talked about how to create the element. Again, we've already talked about to change the content. So if I want to change the content of that element, and we can just say para, then dot inner HTML. Then we want to set it created. So we can just say created from Java script like this. But again, too, nothing will happen on the screen because everything you are doing here is just happening inside JavaScript like that. So we created the element, then we change the element content, but on the screen we still don't have anything. So, and you can even console log it out if you want. After you've created the element, you can do whatever you want with it. For example, I can just console log out the para, and as you can see, it will give us that p that we just created, and again to the content that we put inside it, everything is going to be there, but that element will never be on the screen. Again, to if you check its parent, so if you scroll down and you just check what is the parent element, so pp. So as you can see, parent element is null. So which is telling you that the element is not on the page at all. So how do we put it on the page? So we have different methods too that you can use to put elements on the screen depending on what you are doing. But I'm going to talk about the basic one first. Then in case we now need the advanced one later on, then we can add it. So how do you add element? So each element you have on the screen already, you can actually add something inside them directly. And one way of adding something inside there, as you can see, we've used this inner HTML. But the problem with this inner HTML is that it will replace everything that is there. But sometimes you just want to add to what is there. So that's why I said the one you are going to use is depending on what you want to do. So if you want to replace entire stuff that is there before, then you just find the element that is already on the page, just set its inner HTML to whatever. But again, too, it doesn't work like that because this one is expecting string, but this one is element. So that is the other method that you have to use in order for it to work. And what can we do here? So we need to get one element on the screen first. So we need to get one element on the screen. And when you get the element, these are different methods that you can use. You can put it inside the elements on the page. This is one method. Put it uh let me type it. Put it before the elements on the page. That is another method. Then put it after the element on the page. And in order for us to see all these things in action, so I'm going to give one of them background so that you can see, because if there's no background, you don't know whether it is outside or inside. There's no way you can differentiate whether here now is inside that edge or it is outside, because there's no background there. Everything is just white, 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 white. That is going on there, like that. So everything is just white, white, that is going on inside the stuff. So put it inside, but this one is always at the end. So at the end. So at the end, not that it will put it at the top of it. But you can actually talk to it too that you want to insert it before a particular element inside it. As I said, there are different ways. But let's just talk about the basic one that we might need. So all those other ones that are complex, we can just bring them in later on like that. So as you can see, put it inside the element, put it before the element, put it after the element. So that means we must have one element already. So the element, because this element means that thing is already on the screen. If it's not on the screen, then you can still do all this thing if it's not on the screen, but you still not see it here. That's the problem. So if you want to see it here, that element must already be on the screen. So, but if it's something you created from here, because you can actually create all your element from here, put one inside other using this method. But the problem is that you still not see it on the screen, but they will still be here like that. But since we want to see the results, so that's why we need this element now. It needs to be the element that is already on the screen. That doesn't mean that that's the only thing that you always do. Like that element can be on the screen, and again, it can be something you have in JavaScript. But the one we want to do right now is the element that we already have on the screen. So in order for us to see all this in, so what I want to do there is to scroll down to where we have this element of this heading level 3, because I want to use it as a reference point, or let me look for a particular group that have different elements. So let me just scroll up and create different group for that. So it will be better we just do that. So what we can just do here is to create a div, which is going to be, I'm going to call it group like this. Inside this group, I'm going to have h2 like that. So my group heading welcome like that. Then after this side, I'm going to have paragraph, which is going to be lorem 30 like that. So after this paragraph again, I'm going to have another one. So p paragraph inside group like that, lorem 15 like this. So save, and once this thing is saved, as you can see right now, we have all this content, but it's not really telling us that this is a specific group like that. So what we can do is to go into our CSS. Is this my CSS? No. So let me close this file. So what we can do here is to, we don't even have the CSS yet. So what I will just do is to create the style.css, then connect it to our index.html by going up. So up here, we can use our link CSS like that, so that it will link to the file that I just created. If it's the same name, you leave it. If it's not, then you update the name. And what do we want to do here? So first of all, I don't like the font that all these things are using. So font family, I just want to use a better font. And as you can see, changes everything. Then apart from that, we know we have this group like that. What do we want to do? We want to give you background color, maybe this red. And as you can see, it's only that group. And again, there are two jump packs, so I can just give you this padding of 0.5, which is going to give us this breathing space inside the box. And what do we want to do now? That element that we created from JavaScript, we want to put it somewhere here. So there are different methods that you can use. The first method is that you can put it inside the element, but it's going to be at the end. That method. Another one is to put it before the element, but majorly this is the one that you always use a lot, like that, because you always want to put it inside. But the problem there is that it's always going to be at the end. So you can't just say you want to put it in
inside.
between. So if you want to do all those one, then you have to use other method. So the first thing we need to do is to get our element. And how do we get the element? So we've talked about different methods now that we can use. So what I will just do is I will just say group like that. That's the variable I'm creating, and this is going to be document, then query selector like that, because I know on the page there's an element with that particular class, and we can console log it out so that we know that it is actually giving us the element. So going back to the stuff, as you can see here, we are getting the div on the page, and that div is going to have the content inside it like that. But there is one console log that I did at the top here. Where is that console? So why is that one coming here? I don't want to see anything that we're not talking about so that it doesn't get confused. So as you can see, we only have this div and a paragraph, but now we want to put this P inside that div. So the first thing you do, you create your element, which is something we've done yet, which is giving us this one. Then we're now putting this content inside the element. Then after putting the content, we now want to put this P inside this group. And how do you do that? So what you do is to do your elements like this. So what you need to do is element, then dot so what we need to do is to do element dot append child. Then inside this place, you are going to pass the child that you want to put inside it. So the which one, or let's say parents, like this, so that it will be clearer. So parents, which is whatever you already have on the screen, or if it's already on the screen, or it can be from for right now. Let's just assume it's already on the screen. Then there's a method there which is known as append child. So whatever element you want to put inside this one, just pass it here, and it's going to put it at the end of whatever that is inside that place. But what if you want to insert multiple? Maybe you created multiple PA and you want to put all of them there. So instead of you using append child, all you can just do is to use append. And from here, you pass all the children that you want there. So this dot does mean you are spread like multiple. We're going to talk about this operator later on. So we have children like that. So what this thing is just saying is that all the element you want to put at the end, just pass them one by one, separated by comma. That's what this thing is just talking about there like that. But for now, we use only one element. If it's one element, just use append child. So this one is for one. So one element like that. And this one is for multiple elements. You can use for one element too, but it's just overkill. This one is for multiple elements like that. So this is how this one works. So now let's do it. So instead of us console log out the group, what we just want to do, group then dot append. As you can see, we have append and we have append child. And as you can see what I'm talking about. So this one allows you to pass multiple at the same time. That square is talking about array, so which means multiple items. So but that's not what we want. What we actually need is just this append child. And here now you pass the element. And which element are we putting inside it? We have para. And once this thing is save, you see that by the time it will be added to that place. So it will look for this element, then at the end of everything that is it did not replace anything there, it will just add to the end. And when you check your code, you to be as if you type everything from the HTML. So if you check the code that we have here like that, so expand it and expand this place. As you can see, this is what we type from HTML. We type this, but now this one is coming from JavaScript, and it looks like you type everything from the HTML like that. So append child allows you to add one element inside another element. So you create your element from JavaScript, then you add it inside another element on the page. So maybe this one that just happened now, later on when we are talking about events, it will not be there like that. So there is going to be a button here. So it's when we now click on the button, that is going to show. So when you just say add, then it's always going to be creating new P, then to be adding it to the end of the list like that. But for now, this is what, or this is how you can add into it like that. But instead of you adding inside it, you can actually add it outside. So instead of everything that we just did now, it put it inside. But what if you want it to be outside? Well, outside is of two types, up or down here. And that's the reason why this one is there. We said put it before the elements are like that. And here we have something called insert. As you can see, we have something called insert adjacent. Like so adjacent. Again, we have something called insert adjacent HTML. HTML means you want to do it like this. Like you just want to type it like normal. You don't want to create the element first. You just want to pass the stuff like this. So you can just create in a string, just construct it like the way you used to pass the thing to inner HTML. So that's the same thing as adjacent. But this one means you've created the element. So you now want to insert the element at that place you want. Again, insert adjacent text. This one I mean is just normal text. It will not interpret any HTML code for you. So if you type any HTML code here, it will not interpret it. The way you type it, that's the same way it's going to put it on the screen. But the one we want to use right now is this adjacent element like that. And as you can you see it here? It says where, because you need to talk to it where you want to put it like that. And again, which element are you putting there? So the second thing is the element you want to put, but the major thing here is this place, which is where, as you can see, it comes with different case. As you can see, after begin, we have after end, before begin, and before end. So you need to, because the English, they somehow. This is begin. So just know that this is begin and this is end. So since this is end, or let's just say this is begin. So as you can see, we have after begin. So which means after this, which means it will still put it at the top here. So when you now say before begin, it means before you enter, because this is the line here is the beginning. So after it is here, before it is here. The same thing here too. No, just take the line here. That's where the element starts. So before it is outside of it. Then no, after it is you already enter. So which means you are inside at this place. The same thing here too. This is the end where this line stop. So before it, I mean before the thing get to the stop, that's here. Then after end, that means outside. So because the thing is like opposite based on where it's going. So now, if you want to put it here, that means we need to use before begin, because no, this is the beginning. So before we get to that beginning, that's is outside. So since we want to insert it at the top like that, it's going to be before beginning, like that. And once we create it, as you can see, it's going to put it before it enter that box. But if it is inside, so instead of all saying before begin, what we just need to do is after begin like that. So which means you already get here and you just cross the bridge like that. So you have the bridge, which is this is before, or this is begin, which is a bridge here. This is this is end here like that. So this is another bridge. So it's not left for you to cross the bridge out or to still be inside here. Or here, you either outside or you are in like that. So if you want it to do the other way, which is what I put down here like that, what you can just do instead of this one. So what we can do, put it after the element on the page. So that one is going to be after end like that. So after end, because this is the end, then it's after we get to the end that we want to insert the stuff. And as you can see, that's where it's going to put it like that. So after begin, that means here. Before begin, here. So before end, here. After end, here. Like that. So that's how this one work. But if you still want to, that means you can now use that knowledge now to just input it anywhere you want it to be. So since you want it to be before this one, so you just target this element and you now use its own before begin. So it will put it at display. But you know, if it is not having background sef, you can use before or after begin because there is no background. But once there is background, that if I remove the background of this one to you start seeing that there is no difference. The only time you start seeing difference is when we have background. So like this one now, once I save it like that, you see this distance sef, because by the time we this distance will be there, but when you remove all those normal margin that this thing, you will not see anything, but because it's still using the normal margin. So now if I go back to that place, so instead of this after end, we can just say before end like this. So once I save it, as you can see, to normal person looking at this thing, to them it's just the same thing, but technically they are different because the box is here, so outside, but in order for you to see it, that's the reason why the background is there, because without the background, as you can see now, it's more visible compared to what we have before, like that. So when it is after end, it is outside, like that, so not inside again. But if you know that it's always going to be in this parent and it's to go to the end, just use append. Most of the time it will just go to the end of the content that is there before. Just use append. But if you want to replace the entire thing, like that, you can firstly remove everything that is there and you add, or instead of you wasting time, just use your group, then inner HTML, and pass the code. But there's a problem with this one. You will not be able to add event to this one later on, and that's the reason why you need to create element. Anytime you need event, you need to create element so that you'll be able to interact with it there. But if you don't need event, you just want to dump the stuff on the page, just use this method. If you don't want to create the event directly or from the JavaScript, or connect the stuff yourself. And that's the reason why later on we start coming in with a framework to simplify the process, because you can see right now, you want to add something on a page, you have to create it first, then you put the content inside, then you have to tell it where it's going to add it on a page. With framework, what you just do is, okay, this is the element I want to, and put it here. But how is it going to put it there? Is the one that is going to handle all those one for you behind this. You only just to give it the structure, and that's what we call declarative. So we have two types of programming. We have declarative and we have imperative. Declarative, you just tell it, you describe what you want, but how is it going to do it? It will handle it for you. But when you're talking about imperative, you describe what you want, and at the same time, you still mention how it's going to carry out all the operation. All the operation is going to do to achieve that goal, you have to mention everything. But in declarative word, just tell it what you want, then it's going to take the job from you, carry out the task. So when you are dealing with framework, most of the time you will not be doing all this one because you already have the structure. You are the one describing the structure. But how it's going to create all the structure on the screen, leave it for the framework to undo all those one for you. But before you can start doing all this thing, you need to understand, because there's some time you want to do some complex stuff, or you want to go behind the scene to do some crazy stuff, you have to know all this one. If not, once you get there, you just get stuck. But once you know this one, once you get it, it will be easier for us to quickly move. We'll just add some little stuff to the thing like that. So right now we've talked about how we can get element on the page, how we can replace the content, and at the same time how we can create element, and at the same time add it to the page. Another thing we can do, which is very important, is manipulate the element properties, because you need to change some properties. For example, like this heading now, what I mean by property here is the property you are passing from the HTML code. As you can see, this H1, it has one property, which is ID. This P now, it have one property, which is ID2. This div, it have this property, class. So all these properties you have for the element, you can manipulate them from JavaScript. And one of the way of or one of the advantage, or one of the use of this thing is that imagine you want to do something like this. When this thing is clicked, it open, and when it is clicked, it close. You know, that's CSS that is there. So there is one class for opening, like to show in, like there's a class you're applying that makes these things to show like this, and there's another class you apply that makes it to hide. So with JavaScript now, you now want to toggle the two classes based on what the user is doing with this button. So when they click, you check, is this class there before? Then if it's there, you remove it. But if it's not there, you add it. Or you remove one class, replace it with another class and so forth. Like so, that's what we want to talk about here, like that. So there's a way of manipulating all the general attributes you have there. So the general attributes here, or let me just call it attributes. So like that, so that it will be clearer. Because when you say property in JavaScript, you know you are talking about objects. But yeah, let's make it so where is it? So here, instead of doing that, I even put the class here. So let's just say property attribute here. So attributes. So how do you get the element attributes? So when you say manipulation, manipulation is not just you. There are three things always combined. When we mention manipulation, you are creating, you are modifying the stuff, and you are getting it. Or you can add a place if it's there, because not all of them that you can, which is the same thing as you are changing the stuff like that. So you are creating it or replacing the stuff, you are deleting it, or you are getting it. So those are the operations that we normally put together as a manipulate. So when you say manipulate, you are carrying out all these actions there like that. So you can, you know, add, remove, create, update the elements attribute, and that's the same thing as just manipulate here. The same thing here too. When we say done manipulation, what you are doing there is you are, you know, creating or updating or deleting or getting. So that's what that thing is all about. So anytime someone just say manipulate the DOM, what they are saying is you are doing all these actions. But what are the things you'll be using? Is just, you know, you can get, you can set. So what are the methods you can use to get? We've talked about it. What are the one you can use to modify? It all depend on the element you are working with there like that. So what do we say now? We want to manipulate the attribute. So let us see what we are talking about, because we want to be seeing the code. For example, now H1 that we have on the screen, so we can select it again, which is going to be heading. So I'm using my document and query selector again, because I want to select with the ID heading like this. And what we want to do, we want to manipulate the attributes. And one of the things you can do here is to add to the attributes. You can get the attributes, you can replace the attributes, and you can remove or delete, depending on which one you want to call it there like that. So for example, now this heading, we want to add attribute to the list, so we can just call this heading. Then we have this set attribute. As you can see, we have set attributes. So this one helps you to add attributes. So which attribute do you want to add, and what is the value? As you can see, attribute name here is ID, the value is heading. So for this one, the attribute is class and the value is group. So here now we want to add class on this H1. So because it's only ID that is there, but we want to add a class. So here we just need to say class, but there's a better way of managing class, because it's come with a way of managing the classes, because you know classes can have multiple values. So you know it will be easier for us to be able to remove any one of them and add one of them or replace a specific one. So doing it yourself, you can do it like this, but it will take a lot of code for you to do that. So since it's a common operation, it have that property that you can use to set your class easily. But let's just do it like this for now. And what I want to add here, I just want to add testing like this. So and once this thing is saved and it's get to the page, as you can see now, the attribute has been added to that stuff. So if you want to get, you know, you just, the same word that I'm using here is what you just replace instead of this. So there, here now we can get it, but you know, in order for us to see it, we need to go to the console, because that's, you know, we are getting it now in the JavaScript. So we need to go to the console in order for us to see the results. So this one is going to be heading, then get attributes like that. So this one just mention the name of the attribute you are looking for. So I'm looking for the value. It will return, mention the name, then it will return the value for you if it is there. And as you can see, this is the value of the ID that we have on it. The attribute ID that is there, this is the value. And if it is class that is there, for example, here I just put the class, I just put a class like that. You see that is returning the value. So which other attribute you can set? There's a lot of attributes. You can even create your own custom one by using data like this, but we'll be talking about this one later on. So another attribute you can have there is name. And once, as you can see now, it means that attribute is not there on that element. But you know, we've added class like that, and we have ID already from the HTML code. But now if I disable this line, the reason it's in class is because, you know, we added it, then after that line to see it. But if that line is on there, as you can see, that one too will be null because we know that from the HTML code there is no class. Or we can just go there and add the stuff in our HTML like that. So it all depends on you, but you can manipulate them. So we have the class, we have my class here and there. You know, there are different classes, and there is a reason why I'm adding this so that we can manipulate it later on by using the method that JavaScript is giving us to work with class. And as you can see now, I have all of them on the page, and you can replace it too. So that's the problem with this one now. You can see now if I do this one now, it will replace all of them without that single one. But that's not what I want to do. I just want to replace a specific one, or I want to add this one to the list of what is there before. So if you want to do it like that here, first of all, if you want to do it, so what you do is to get what is there before by doing, you can see the, so adding, then get attributes. So you get all of them first, like that. Then after it, you now combine it together with the new one I want to add, which is, there's still a lot of things I need to type here. But instead of me going through this process, there's a better way of managing the class attributes on your element. But this is how to manage attributes in general, like that. So again, let me go back to the view so that we can see what is going on, because this one will happen on the page, not on the console, because it will be happening here like that. What we want to do, we want to replace the stuff like that, which is something I've done already. So to replace the stuff, you just use your set like that. So if it's something that is there before, or you can just so you do not have all the things, so you just use whatever you want to use, or just set, and it will remove the stuff like that, which is this no set attributes like that. So whatever that is there before, it will just replace it. And again, if you want to remove it, so we can just say adding, then the remove adding, adding, remove attributes like that. So which attribute I want to remove? I want to remove. I'm not replacing it, or I'm not set. Just remove the stuff like that. And as you can see, you know, it was my whatever stuff that is there like that. So as you can see, this is what was there. But after that line, we remove it. And that's why we want to check from the HTML, because the thing is really fast like that. Assuming this thing is not reloading, you see it will flash. Yeah, later on when we are dealing with events, that's where we are going to, you know, here now we have to refresh in order for us to see the result. But that one now it will be happening when we click a button. So we know you click a button, not that you're refreshing the page. So you are going to see how it's removing the stuff. You are going to see like, so whatever that is there, it will just flash and remove the stuff. But because you know the page reload, and before it complete everything, is already the script is really fast, so he did not even see what happened like that. But once we started using events, it will be clearer there like that. So this is how you can add. But instead of you because most of the time what you want to manipulate is a class. You always manipulate the class of the element, just like what I mentioned here. There's a class you want to use to open the stuff, and there's another class that's supposed to hide, or to remove the class, or to even update the class that is there, because you have multiple on that element, and you don't just want to remove all of them and reset it again yourself. You just want to remove a specific class. If you look at this element we have here, so let me go back to the page and save the code. If you look at the element, as you can see, there are different classes. There is my, there is class, there is here, there is and there is there. So if I'm using this, it's manipulating all of them at once. But I don't just want to be changing them. I want to focus on a specific class that I have inside it. And that's where this one comes in, which is known as, so you can do your heading, then dot class list. So this class list is, as you can see, it comes with a method. But this thing don't come back again. So they have add, you can add, it will not remove whatever that is there, it will just add this one to the list. So remove, it will look for this thing there, and it will, if it's not there, it will leave the every other thing. So it will go there, look for it. If it is there, it will remove. If it is not there, it will just go. No, it will not give you error or anything like that. So each one of them are there. So let me remove it uh, like that. So here, if I say add my class now, as you can see, my class has been added to the end of what is there. If you want to do it, you have to get everything that is there by using attribute. Get everything, then whatever you get from there, you combine it with this one. But you have to check whether something is there before or not. So all those things that you're supposed to be doing behind the scene, class list have everything. Your own is just to call the method that it gave to us, which is add. And again, you can use it to add multiple, not just one. You can add anytime you see something like this, it means you can add multiple. You can supply multiple. So yeah, so can just say second like this. So it will add all of them at once. So my class and second without bothering with the existing that stuff that is there uh, like that. So when you add at the same time too, you can remove anyone you don't want. Like this here now that is there, I don't want it at all. So once I just call this remove, as you can see, there's something like here again, like that. And again too, we have toggle. So toggle is doing the work of these two together based on
remove and
whether it's there or not. So toggle is doing the job of adding or removing based on whether it is there or not. So when you say toggle class, if that thing is there, it will remove it. But if it's not there, it will add. So that's the job. And this one is something you can use to do something like this later on. No, right now, it means the class is not there to open. But once you now click on it, it will add that class. So this thing will now show because that class is the one that will bring all the CSS that will make this thing to come outside like this. Again, when you click on it, then it will remove the class. And that's what toggle is what we normally use for something like this. When it is just one button that can show something and remove. What you are doing there, you are on and off. Because that's what this thing is doing, like your switch. Is that on or off? You can't have the two at the same time. So here too, but it's still the same button you are using. So when it is on, the next thing you can do is to off. And when it is off, the only thing you can do there is to on. And that's the reason why we have that toggle there. So here now, what they are doing is just toggling based on whether the thing is there or not. So if it is if it is shown like this, when you click again, it will close. But if you click again, since it's not showing it now, it will now open. So this is what we call toggle. And you can use this one now to toggle the class on your element, which what we're going to be doing later on. Like, right now, because we are refreshing the entire page, it looks like the thing was not there before. It's actually there, but after you call this in, it will go there and just remove the stuff. But because the thing is really fast, because the first load takes time, but JavaScript behind the scene is really fast, so already remove everything. Our eyes cannot see that this thing was there in the first place. But once we get to the event and we're not reloading, we are just carry out action there, it will be better at that point like that. And again too, there's another one. It gives us another goodies that you can use to check whether a class is there or not. So you can check whether that class is there or not. So because sometimes you want to check whether if it's there, you want to do something, or you want to add another class, or if it's not there, maybe you want to handle this toggle yourself, because there's some places you need to do some things yourself. So that's where this contains comes in. So this one will return true or false, because you are asking whether that thing is there or not. So it will either be true or false like that. As you can see, based on this, that you know that that class is not there. So at that point, you know that that thing maybe is for that thing to open something somewhere, or if for to toggle something, or to change the colors to something, whatever you want to do. Based on this, and you already know that that thing is not having that stuff at that point. So based on that, you now want to carry out your action. For example, what I can just do here, for example, we can just say if like this, I just say heading class list dots, and as you can see, we console log out yes. And once I save, as you can see, nothing is coming back because that condition is not true. Apart from that, you can now use s, so which means you want to do something else, which is going to be this no like that. Once I save it now, as you can see, it's going to be no because the thing is false like that. But in order for you not to be false, what we can just do is to add the class there. So after adding it, as I can see now, we get yes, or we use a class that is already there. So instead of us checking this one, we can just say here like that. And once I save it, as you can see, it's showing this thing like that. This false now is related to my class, so it's not related to, because the texts are not the same thing. So let me remove this one, and as you can see, we get yes because we have the year on the element like that. So it make it easier for us, which is this working with element class like that. Let's see, in our next class, I want to start with the event, because it will be better that we started with events before doing this transversing whatever stuff like that, because is when you want to start doing some complex stuff. That's where it comes in, where you know the element, but you want, based on that element, you want to go inside it, or you want to go after it, or before, like you want to know what is before it. That's when all those one will come in. But event is better than that one for now, because event is more important than that transversing, because you need event to start doing some stuff on a page. And let me add it to the list like that. So we have so let me just put it down here, which is so that it to be easier. So we have this li, and this one is going to be events in JavaScript like this. So we have ol, yeah, complete it for me. Yeah, so we have different type of events. Oh yeah, now that's network. Once I slow, yeah, ongoing again. Once I slow in network, yeah. Mouse, we have the form events. Which other one do you want to give me? We have the window. I don't want to deal with window. We have the keyboard. We have the form event. We are going to be using this one a lot, which is the click. So click is part of the mouse event, because it's mouse that you are using like this into click on that stuff. Keyboard, you want to interact with the keyboard as the user is pressing. You want to know what they are doing at that point, so you can use the keyboard events like that. So we have events in JavaScript. Let me just talk briefly about it, and then in the next class we talk more like that. So we have events like that. So this event is very important, because that's what you are going to use to do something based on the action that the user carry out, because that's the only way you can know what is going to, because what is going on the page, what are they doing. So based on what the user is doing on the page, then you want to keep responding to those actions. And on the page, we have different actions that can occur, which is what we call event. And as you can see, we have different type of it, or their group. We have the group for keyboard event, where you want to know whether the user press something down or the thing is coming up, because there are different on that. As you can see, as it's going down, that's one event. Again, when it's coming back, that's another event. So you now want to target maybe when it's going down, or when it's coming up, or when it has gone down and come back up. That's the one you want. So it comes. So all those ones, they are under the keyboard. So we are dealing with form. We are dealing with submission of for your form. You have your form, so the user fill the form. Then when they are done, they click on submit. You now want to check whatever they put there is right or wrong. Maybe you should show the error to them or not. You can use the form events to hijack, or to just know what is going on with the form that the user just filled. With mouse, you can use it to know the movement of your mouse like that, to know whatever the user click, the location of the place that is clicked, and so forth like that. Again, we have the scroll event, which one that you can use as I'm scrolling like this, you can listen for the event, and based on that, you know where the user have gotten to on the page, and based on that, you check whether the stuff here is touching that content. If it's touching, you want to do something. If it's not touching, you can see that some element now they are outside of the screen. So when they're outside of the screen, you want to string them. Then when they are in the screen, then you want to expand. So you can, based on what is going on, you listen for the event that is corresponding to that, then you carry out the operation that you want to do. And how do you listen for events? So you can see now what you need to do is to listen, because you don't really know the time that the user is going to do that action. So you have to keep waiting for them to do. Then once they do it, then you just carry out the action, because you don't know that whether they are going to do it now or later all the time. So what you have to do is keep listening to them. Then once they do what you are looking for, you perform the action that you want. So we have you listen like that. And how do you listen like that? You have a listener like that, which is a way of you listening to your event. And we have different way of listening for events in JavaScript. So we have the element, in case you already have the element. Then we have the event name that you're looking for. Then whatever you want to do, which is a function, because this thing now is something that is going to run later on. So it's function, because you don't want to do the thing now. Is when this thing occur that you want this one to be called like that. So you want to do something. That's one way of listening for event. The one I love to use most is this method, like this. So this is the method I always use, because this one makes it easier for you to add. As you can see, you can add multiple events. So you add one here, this event name now. You add one. You want to do something here. Maybe you have another thing you still want to do. You can create a separate, like, cut all the function into their separate this in their name. Then you start adding each one of them, and again too, you can remove any one of them you don't need later on by using the document, or let's just say the elements, then remove event listener like this. We're going to talk more about it. So you pass the event and whatever the function that you passed before, like that. So this is how to add events to your element. For example, here, let's just quickly add simple one, and we call it a day. Then in the next class, we talk more about it. So inside our so inside this group, so I want to have a button inside it. What I just want to do is click me, like that. And again, in order for us to locate it easily, we would have it in group. We just use our query selector to target it. So we know that constant btn, which is the same thing as button, so document, then query selector like this. Let's see now, started doing nonsense. So what I want is that it's a group. Inside that group, I have a button there, like this. And what I want to do, so btn now on. So we need to add this. You can actually do this. Let me talk about the HTML one, because the HTML one too is very important, like that. So did I put the stuff here? No. So this one's supposed to be on. So you have to add the on event name like this, whatever the event you are looking for, like that. So this one. This is how it works. But you can actually do it directly from HTML code too. So here, what we can just do, can just say on. So it always starts, as you can see, all of them. So these are different events. So you can see, maybe you are dealing with audio, whatever stuff. This is on can play, on blur. On blur, this one is not all of them that will work on the button. You have to use the corresponding one on the element. Like, you have to use correct events on that element. But the one that is popular, and that's why we normally use it, is click, because you can click on any element or anything on the page. So what this one want to do is that when you click, is this alert, it will not do it. It will keep waiting for you to click on that button. Once you click on it, it will perform the action you pass here. This is a JavaScript code. Whatever you pass here is a JavaScript code. But I will not be doing like this. What you normally do is to pass the function that you want to run. Then it will now call that function anytime you want. So now once this save that one, go back to the page, like that, go up. As you can see, nothing is happening right now. But once I click the stop, it will fire the event. So once you fire the event, it will call that function that will pass into it, and that function will run. That one is when you are doing, this one is when you are doing it from HTML. But I don't like to put it like this in HTML, because it should be too much of things going on inside HTML. Just like the way we separate our CSS from the HTML. Even though you can put it here, it will work, but we are separating them like that. So instead of us doing it from there, we've targeted it from here. But you can just say the same thing here too on click. But here now you have to pass the function you want to run like that. And what did I want to do? So inside this function, I want to call that same alert. And what did I want to put here? My button clicked like that. So save. And as you can see, I did not pass the alert directly here, because you don't want, anytime you call alert like this, it's calling the function, not that it's waiting. So this one is, anytime you create function, it's not calling it. It will call it later on, where you use the function name, then this one. So, and since we are not the one that will be calling it, don't forget, you are not the one that is calling the function. It's on click here. Like when this stuff fired, when this event occur, this is the function we are telling it to run. So when this thing fired, run this stuff. If you pass the alert directly, it means on this line you are running it yourself. But when when you are creating function, you are not running it at that point. You are just creating it. But you are not saying, okay, it will be called later on when the events that we have here are fired. So that's why I'm not passing the alert. Any function that you've created before, you can't just pass it here. So you have to create another function. Then inside that function, you now call that one that you had before, like that, because you can have something like this. So again, going back to the screen, clicking on this, and as you can see, it's going to but I don't want to be doing that alert whatever stuff. I want to change the content that is inside the button, like that. So what I just want to, when you click on it, it will just say change the content from this click there, like that. But how do you, but we are going to be talking about the event value later on. So what we can do with BTN, you already know how to change the content now. Inner HTML, then it will not be this. So it will not do this. You can see now, it's not like before that once the thing just run, it will just change it. No. The only time it will change is when you click on the button, like that. And again, too, you can actually make it go away after some seconds. That's another thing on its own. Like when you do something, that's when you copy something online, you see that it show you the check mark, then after some few seconds it will go back again. All these things we are going to talk about how to do all this. They are not doing any magic, everything is just here, like that. So now save, going back to the screen, so click in, then it will change, but it will never change until you click on the stuff. And again too, you are going to be seeing everything that is going on the page. So let me click here so that we can see. As you can see here, that's the button, and once I click on it, as you can see, it replace the content, and you see that blinking stuff. That's the same thing is doing all those changes we are doing before, but because the thing is really fast, so we did not really catch. So we did not catch it. Again too, as you can see, it's still changing now, because I said anytime you click, it will only change, but because it's the same thing, our eyes is seeing it as nothing is changing, even though it's changing, and as you can see, it's changing. But because it's the same text, there is no displacement, they still the same thing. So I will not say that the only time the eye will see something has changed is when there is a displacement, like there's a change in between what you have before to what you have now. So, but since there is no displacement, eyes is still seeing it. But yeah, we can see that there's a because something is actually going on there, like that. So, and again, too, when you get to some framework later on, they make it kind of easier. Since the thing is not changing, you will not even see the stuff changing here. So they will check whether the thing is different. Since it's not different, they will not even update the UI at all. But since you are using normal JavaScript, whatever you do, that's what it's going to do for you, like that. But we'll talk more about this event. Then after that, we start, combining them together with what we've known before to now create something meaningful, because this event is very, very important. Because that event, as you can see, what we did now is when we click that to change. The same thing too is when the user scroll that you want to change the color from this red to another color based on the position where you are on the page and so forth, like that. So event is what you are going to use to do all this thing. And again, to be talking about the events that, because I mentioned that you need to know information about the events that occur. So all those functions that you are calling, they are actually receiving the info about the event. So if you want to know about the info, you receive it here and you do the stuff. But we do that one in the next class, like that. Let me stop here.